dedication meeting. We'd like to rise, please, and start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we have a very special recognition to start our board meeting tonight. And we have many people who are here for it, including our town supervisor, Linda Puglisi, so it's always nice to see you. But I'm going to turn the floor over to Diane Swartfager, who will tell you a little bit about this project. What we would like to do tonight is to honor those who helped Diane and her team at the middle school in partnership with the school district in the town of Cortland to rededicate the Blue Mountain Middle School 9/11 tribute flag. So I'll turn it over to Diane.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening. Nice to see you all tonight, and thank you all for coming. And the flag was rebuilt this fall, as you know, at Blue Mountain Middle School. There are many components involving the history of this a contest way back in the day of geometric designs by Mrs. Miller's 6th grade class. We had a garden designed by Mrs. Rhoda and her art classes. The flag was constructed by technology classes back in the day by Mr. Channon. And then, of course, we had a lot of financial support from Supervisor Puglisi and the town of Cortland. And then the outdoor crew led by Ray Gill. A lot of people volunteered, and we have a large boulder there that still has all their names on it. So the dedication that day, for those of you who might have been around at that time, we had United States military, the color guard, doves of peace circling the flag 3 times, a continuation of healing after 9/11. So the structure has been falling apart for many years, and kind of do a little bit of gardening here and there, and I'm looking at it and I keep picking up all the beads that are falling, and I'm saying, I don't know a darn thing about this, but I can garden. So I'm chirping away with Kayla Campos in the Memorial Garden, and I'm saying, oh, I wish we could fix this and that, and well, let's keep digging and planting. And she says, well, you know, Mrs. Swartfager, my parents could help out a little bit. I said, well, I'd like this Memorial Garden sign to be cleaned up. It's fading, and it doesn't look very nice in such a pretty backyard area for the garden. And she said, oh, my mom will take care of that. So over the summertime, she volunteers for Mom, and then she says, you know, my dad could clean up these posts too. And I'm thinking, holy mackerel, I'm just going to sucker these people. All right, Kayla, let's get them here. So sure enough, they did a beautiful job with that Memorial Garden sign. And I'd like to honor Kayla, since she has done a fabulous job, and most of that work with Mom, at the Memorial Garden. So Kayla, you're going to come up first, please. Hudson student, as we know, she's now at the high school. Thank you for your time, energy, dedication, sincerity, and artistic ability as you redesign the 1986 Blue Mountain Middle School Memorial Garden sign. Your leadership and attention to detail has given Hendrick Hudson a beautiful gift. With gratitude and warmest appreciation from the Hendrick Hudson School District. So then I'm moaning and groaning about the flag, and she's right there next to me in the garden. She says, well, you know, my parents might be able to help you out there. And I said, oh, I can't do that to them again. They were just too kind. So sure enough, I asked them to please meet with us, and we had a little conversation. And then we met with Diana Rhoda. We had Jeff Coleman from the town of Cortland come in. He did a lot of investigating, but through a lot of our research and back and forth with emails over the fall, we decided that the best way to go was with Mr. and Mrs. Campos. Mr. Campos has assured me that we have at least 15 years worth of this, if not more. Yeah, he is the owner of Coastal Cedar Construction Company. So with his guidance, he and his wife began the long process of looking at the materials, helping me order the materials. And I do want to thank Anthony Merlini for his patience, because as my husband will testify, if I want something done, it's going to get done. Right? So I also want to thank my husband for taking a lot of orders from me that lovely day and helping us take it down, because the structure was very heavy and delicate at the same time. Ms. Gillis, a former math teacher, was our mediator as we went through that process together and held on to the ladders. But we managed to do that, and our marriage still has survived. All good stuff, all good and fun on a very hot day. So thank you, dear, for doing that. Bill Chiro. Bill Chiro placed 3 beautiful lights over the structure. So if you go by at night, it's really quite spectacular how it's illuminated, and it just looks, the presentation, of course, during the day it's fabulous, but that nighttime glow is just like, wow. And we really felt that that was necessary just to honor both our servicemen and women home and abroad, of course all our veterans. Many of us have family members who certainly have participated and set the ultimate sacrifice, but certainly for those in our VA hospital here, that was a no-brainer. So for as little as I knew, I certainly am grateful for Kayla to just walk around with me and do all that gardening, so we could just get your parents right into that activity. As you'll see in this beautiful presentation, some slides that kind of describe the 80-plus hours that the Campos family has put into that structure, which is really magnificent. The back of it was so solid from the original built that we only had to replace the facade of it. Not to mention, of course, the support of the district to continue, because there's a lot of mulching in there, and the white rocks, and the gardening, and PTA supporting the trees that pass away. We have to dig them out, and then we put new trees and bushes in. So it's always evolving, but it really makes the school, when you come in there, it's like an oh wow sight. So we're very proud of it, and all the teamwork makes the dream work, for sure. So if I could trouble Mr. and Mrs. Campos to please come up. This exemplary award is presented to Marcos and Christina Campos of Coastal Cedar Construction Company, and are the proud parents of Kayla Campos, student of Hendrick Hudson School District, and they're only known as Kayla's mom and Kayla's dad. The Hendrick Hudson community, along with the United States servicemen and women and our veterans, thank you for all your selfless time, energy, expertise, and financial support as you restored our flag project of 2003. So again, thank you. Thank you for your support, and we certainly will need more money for all the
Thank you. Thank you to Kayla and Mr. and Mrs. Campos.
We're going to have Linda Puglisi come up and recognize some folks, and then we'll show the tribute.
It'll be my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Superintendent, for inviting me here to the school board. I just want to start off by saying what a great school district this is. We're so proud to have this wonderful administration and the school board and the teachers and the staff and everybody in our community. People move to the Portland community, the Buchanan community, because of the school districts. So you do a great job. Absolutely wonderful. Superintendent and I meet often. There's a subject that we talk about a lot. We're not bringing that up tonight because we have so many wonderful things to say about this beautiful Flag of Hope project that we did in a collaborative way, which is so wonderful. So Diana Rhoda came to me many years ago, and of course you can't say no to Diana, right?
Right.
And so we sat and we chatted about the design, and I said, anything you want us to do? And so Jeff Coleman from our DPW department and town board supported it wholeheartedly. So we got together, we had a design with the principal, and most importantly with the kids. The kids wanted to do a special project for 9/11, and it's just been a wonderful joint project in our town and in our school district. So I'm very proud to be here tonight. I know you have a big agenda, lengthy agenda, but I wanted to give certificates of appreciation, and I'll begin with Kayla Campos. And this is from myself and the members of the Portland Town Board, Rich Becker, Frank Farrell, Debbie Costello, and Jim Creighton, in recognition of restoring the 9/11 Flag of Hope at Blue Mountain Middle School. Thank you for your hard work and dedication to this wonderful project. The community appreciates all of your efforts. Congratulations. members of the Campbell's family. They're so talented. My goodness. Christina, please come forward. And I have one for you too, and also to Marcus.
That's right.
We're so blessed to have these wonderful people in our town, in our community. And I have one for Diana Rhoda. You want me to find her and give it to her, Joe, or you will? Or?
We can, yeah, we'll take it.
Okay.
We'll take it, thank you.
And then I have one that can go to the principal and to Blue Mountain Middle School.
Great.
So it's just really a terrific project. We're proud to be a part of it. Thank you all.
The tribute video was referenced earlier, and we have it queued up here, I
All
think.
set.
Okay,
Thank
you've
you.
got it queued up.
You ready?
Yeah, go ahead and I'll cut the lights and
You want to make a big mistake?
show you guys back.
Full screen?
Here you go, Laura.
Can you hit that button?
We'll share this video tribute on our website and social media, so the kids at the middle school will be able to see it, and those who participated in the initial build many, many years ago will be able to enjoy it as well. So.
And excuse me, John Owens, our building principal, has asked me to take another part of this. We are going to, yeah, you're nodding your head because you know we're going to ask you for some more money for this one too. Because of the history of the flag and the importance of all the children who are involved with the town, we're going to set up, I want to call it a showcase, but almost like a museum-like. We're in the beginning stages of creating this with our art department, and I have all of the pieces and letters and articles and some of those pictures that you've seen Diana Rhoda has, of course, given to me. So we're going to be working on that throughout the year, and we'll eventually coming up with slideshows, and we're getting a little crazy and creative with lighting, but we're in the beginning stages, and we look forward to having something permanent at Blue Mountain to honor the past and the present and moving forward.
I have some items also I can get to.
fantastic. We have a beam from 9/11 with a flag that flew there as well, so we're going to be highlighting certain. So it'll be beautiful and very appropriate.
Right.
Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you all.
All right, so can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We want to talk about the,
Yes, so in the consent agenda are a number of fiscal items that we wanted to give Enrique a moment to underscore, not just for the board, but for the public. There are a number of financial transfers which are not atypical for the board to understand the rationale and approve, but wanted to give Enrique a few minutes to underscore the rationale for the transfers and how our budget process works.
Thank you. Actually, our budget process for the 2019-2020 school year has already started. So we start the budgeting of our staff in the month of October, more than a year before it actually happens. So we built our budget based on the staff that we have today for September of 2019. So some staff move from one building to another one, or from one type of work to another one. And we always want to have it in the correct account code. So if anyone asks me today, how much does it cost to have an ELA department in the high school on teachers, I can give them the exact amount. So the purpose of making all those changes is because from the moment that I started my budget in October of last year to September of this year, when teachers move either from buildings or staff from one place to another one, or had different tasks, we change the account code. It's very typical. In the past, what we did was to bring it to the board when an account code was negative. This year, we decided to do it proactively and to switch all the account codes and all the money in front of what's going to happen during the year. So that's why you're going to see a lot of transfers from one account to the other one. But if you can see, most of the transfers are from one salary account to another salary account.
Okay. Thank you.
is there anything that anybody would like to pull from the consent agenda tonight? And can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so next is items removed from the consent agenda, which had been removed prior, which are the acceptance of donations. And tonight we have two donations. One is donation of some furniture for the classrooms from SEPTA. Thank you very, very much to the SEPTA members for that donation. And the second donation is from New York Life, from a New York Life employee of $1,110. Thank you very, very much to that New York Life employee as well. Can I have a motion to accept these donations, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next section is a hearing from the public on non-agenda items. Just to remind you, there is a sign-up sheet if you do want to speak at the microphone. You'll be called in order of the sign-in sheet. When addressing the board, please step up to the microphone, state your name, and identify the organization, if any, that you are representing. Comments should be addressed directly to the president of the board, not to members of the audience. Letters, petitions, or other written material can be handed to the district clerk. The board president or the superintendent may follow up with you at a later time. There will not be a dialogue at the meeting. Comments regarding students, personnel, or legal issues are not permitted in public session. Is there anybody who would like to make a comment tonight? Okay. So next is the superintendent's report.
Yeah, a number of updates, but I'll try to move them along because we do have a couple presentations. Diane Swertfager, who was here, was here as a teacher, volunteer, and helper with the 9/11 flag, as we just heard. But her volleyball team also are sectional champions. So they won their sectional tournament last week. Shocking, yeah. They're 14th in their last 18 years.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
So she has left, but we wanted to keep her part of the presentation about the flag. But congratulations to our outstanding volleyball team. We also have a swimmer, Jen Gugelman, who will be representing our school district at the New York State Swim Championships in Ithaca next weekend. That is her third straight trip to the state tournament. She qualified in both the 200 freestyle and 500 freestyle. I'm told she swims as fast as Michael Phelps, so you have to pay attention to watch her.
Don't blink.
If you blink, you missed it. Holiday concerts. This is holiday concert season after Thanksgiving. So we have posted on our website and Facebook a one-stop shop to get to all of the concerts between the 5 buildings. There are a lot of them, and pretty much any Monday through Thursday after Thanksgiving, if you show up at any one of our 5 schools, you will hear some sort of holiday concert. So if you can get out to them, that would be wonderful. This also is the time winter sports begin. So we have moved inside, and that's a good thing because it's cold out, and it's an even better thing because it's going to snow and we're going to get ice tomorrow, which leads me to winter weather conversations. We sent out an email to all of our parents earlier today, as well as posted on Facebook and other social media outlets and the website of how we go about making weather-related decisions. And our decisions are as good as the people who forecast the weather. This district is one of many in our region that subscribes to a private forecasting service that really hones in on the northwest corner of Westchester County. We receive those updates every 6 hours over the last couple days. So we're tracking this storm that is coming up the East Coast. It's really going to be about timing. We believe we'll be able to start school tomorrow. We'll learn more early tomorrow morning about when the snow is coming. Our goal is to try to get everyone home and buses off the road by the time snow starts accumulating. What makes this storm a little interesting is all of the forecasts have said that you will see something on a radar screen that you won't necessarily be experiencing if you're outside. That the radar will pick up precipitation, in this case snow, but it may not actually reach the ground or accumulate. So you're going to be seeing something on TV that you won't be seeing when you look out your window. So it's one of those forecasts that you really have to see it to believe it, which does not help with making any sort of weather-related decisions. We also know tomorrow night across the 3 elementary schools are parent-teacher conferences. Those are very, very likely to be postponed and rescheduled. Good luck rescheduling those because, as I previously mentioned, we're going to run into holiday concerts. So lucky us that this all is happening when it's happening. And the last update is Hen Hud Live. I've talked about this group a few times, but they are in the giving mode. They are handing out grants to our 5 schools, focused on programs to support after school, enrichment, STEM, arts, you name it, they're going to fund it. So 3 of the 5 schools have submitted their grant applications, and the 2 others are going to get them in by Friday, but Hen Hud Live raised about $20,000 that they are going to turn around in grant applications before the new year. So once those decisions are made, we'll let you know. But they are already planning for their event in March, and we sent out a save the date, but we'll do it again. So just an outstanding group of moms and dads and community members who are doing what they can to help out. So that has always been a great event, and will be another great event in March, but we're gonna start spending some money, and we'll keep you in the loop. And with
All
that,
right,
I'll
thank
leave
you
it
very
at that.
much. Committee reports. Policy committee will be talking about
Policies.
policies tonight. Lots of policies, I believe we had 6 of them. So we can move on to any other committees people have attended.
I went to the Furnace Woods School PTA meeting, and there's just the regular things I think being discussed, trying to figure out how to help their cultural enrichment money to be spread as far as they'd like it to be spread. They had the Halloween parade like all the other elementary schools, which was fun. Everybody's getting very excited about the Harlem Wizards visit coming up in December. And the other thing that's happening is a breakfast with Frosty and Friends, and that's going to be for all 3 of the elementary schools' cultural enrichment budgets. And that's going to be December 8th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the high school. And so there'll be more information coming out about that. It'll also benefit SEPTA as well. And I think that's pretty much it. They're going gangbusters with their after-school program there. It's really kind of cool to see how that's taken off recently, and I think the other schools are also doing really great things with their after-school programs as well. Yeah.
And all of our PTAs, we've finished all 3 elementaries, but then the middle school and high school will focus their PTA meetings on the capital project. So if any parents have questions about what is happening at the middle school or high school, those that topic will be on the agenda. The middle school PTA meeting is the Monday after Thanksgiving, and the high school date escapes me, but that will be an agenda topic.
I attended the Blue Mountain Middle School PTA meeting and talking mostly about fundraising. They did just finish their Scholastic Book Fair, which was a success again this year. And they've been working very hard on sending information about vaping to the parents, excuse me, and to the students, and also doing informational presentations.
I attended a SEPTA meeting, which was very informative. They had someone who trained service dogs, which was very informative, and I would encourage our parents to get involved in these PTA meetings because a lot of information can come out of it. There was people who had a service dog themselves and asked and added to the conversation, and you realize how much value they can add and what's involved in being able to obtain and the benefits. Quite informative, and if you should follow the agendas for these PTAs because these presentations can be very informative.
That's it.
Speaking of presentations, we'll turn it over to Lisa Shookman, who's going to introduce our next 2 groups.
So our first group is the elementary group. We've been talking a lot about social emotional learning, and we put a lot of money into it the last couple of years. And we haven't had a real program at the elementary school. This year they got together. They decided what themes they were going to cover, what programs they were going to use. And I'm not going to take up their time because they have some activities for you guys to do and a lot of information to share. So I'll just introduce. So we have Dr. Wynn, who is at BV. We have Katie Eminger, who is here at Frank G. Lisa Richmond is at BV and Frank G. And Christina Ray is at Furnace Woods. So I'm going to turn it over to them. I'll run the clicker if you want, or if you've got it, you go right ahead.
Okay. So we're going to start with social emotional learning. Why is it important? So it's important because it increases our academic achievement. It helps our students be more emotionally available to learn. It teaches them self-control skills, improves relationships. It decreases the emotional distress, the negative thinking, and behavior problems. We have research that has shown that social emotional skills have a tremendous impact on long-term success on students, even through adult life, because they're more emotionally regulated to foster good relationships.
You got it.
So we're just going to give a brief overview of the evidence-based interventions we have. Our main one that we're doing classroom lessons on is in Second Step. It has 2 different programs. The first program, which we'll show a lesson on in just a little bit, is the social emotional learning unit, and that is grade specific and evidence-based. It uses songs, puppets, posters, and videos to really gain those social communication skills that the elementary students need. We also have the bullying prevention unit, K-5, where it's grade specific on how to be a bystander, ways to prevent bullying, if you're the victim of bullying, strategies to use to handle those situations.
We have the zones of regulation. It is a counseling curriculum that categorizes feelings in 4 colorful zones. Each zone provides a toolbox of skills for students to learn and use during social situations. Skill streaming is a counseling curriculum of 60 social skills that are broken down into steps for students to learn and practice and use in their everyday life.
We also have the Social Detective and a series of what we call We Thinker books. They all focus on specific social skills and really breaks it down to help students who are struggling or need to better their skills by doing whole body listening, using eye contact, and really working together as citizens within their classroom as well as peers within their relationships throughout the classroom and school setting.
And then we have a unique counseling tool that we use. It's called Go Zen, and this is all online, so I don't have anything to show you. I printed out some forms that I'll pass around. And it has little videos, cartoon videos, and it helps kids with depression, anxiety, teaches mindfulness skills, and there are worksheets that go along with these videos that you stream online. So I'll pass that around, and I have one of the worksheets if you would like to look at them.
Thank you.
And these are the different programs.
Here's pass it to me.
I'm also just going to pass around the different books that we have to look through.
I would, but Diane, slide them this way. Yep.
This year is our pilot year for monthly social emotional learning SEL lessons to all students. We're using the Second Step curriculum, where in November, December, we're focusing on the empathy module with giving a bullying prevention unit lesson mixed within. January, February, we are looking at managing emotions, so more of those coping skills. And in March and April, we're focusing on problem-solving steps and applying problem-solving to your everyday life. In our counseling groups, we're using the other interventions, but we wanted to make a more proactive stance where we wanted to give all students social emotional learning skills. So that's why in each of the 3 elementary schools, we're each giving all students in all grades these 6 lessons.
All right, now the fun part. We're going to give a closer look into one of the Second Step lessons. It's from the first grade empathy module. With each lesson, it goes into different components, but just for time's sake, we're going to give a shortened version to see all the components that go into it because there's a lot of them. Some of them are interactive, so feel free to join in if you want. But every lesson starts with lesson objectives. The first ones are over here. As you can see, our students will be able to name feelings when presented with physical clues, and then name feelings when presented with environmental and situational clues. All right, so we're ready to begin. For the first lesson, we're going to start with the brain builder activity, so what they call to kind of get students ready to learn and focus for the lesson ahead. So for this one, it's going to be Simon Says. So Simon Says has 2 rules. Rule 1, when I say Simon Says, you do what I do. And if I don't say Simon Says, you keep doing what I'm doing until I say Simon Says again. So, are we ready? All right. Simon says touch your head. Simon says touch your shoulders. Simon says touch your knees, touch your nose. All right, we had some people. All right, we're going to do one more quick round to make sure everybody's on the same page. All right, Simon says touch your ears. Simon says touch your nose. Simon says touch your head, touch your shoulders. All right, our brains and bodies are focused, so why don't we go in and talking about feelings now.
Okay, so in our skill builder last time, we learned that clues on people's
faces
and their bodies can show us how they feel. And how we know how others feel also helps us with problem solving. So now we're going to the listen to the feeling song. Feel free to sing along and copy the gestures.
Happy is a smile and a twinkle in the eye. Happy is a friend or a homemade apple pie. Everyone has feelings. Show them on our faces. Show them on our faces.
Bob Marley too.
Feel them in our body. Tell them with the voices how you feel the way you feel. Sad is a tear and a head hanging down. Sad is when you lose your special toy doll. Everyone has feelings. Show them on our faces. Show them on our faces. Feel them in our bodies. Tell them with the voices how you feel the way you feel. Anger is a fist and a heart beating fast.
So it goes through the 5 elementary level feelings, and as the grades go on, more feelings are added. So this is for first grade. And now we'll segue into more of our skill building.
Hello, Snail. You don't seem very happy today.
Puppy and I were playing a game with a balloon and it popped. Now we can't play anymore and you don't have any more, I don't have my balloon either.
I'm sorry your balloon popped. I don't see Puppy. Maybe Puppy's thinking of a different game that you can play. Why don't you come next to me? Class, how do you think the snail is feeling?
Sad.
Great. How can you tell?
He's looking down. His shoulders are kind of punched.
His voice seems a little sad too.
Great. You figured out that Snail was sad from his body and from the way he sounded when he was talking. What people say and how they say it is another clue that can let us know how people feel. In the next part of this lesson, we will begin to talk about being frustrated, and we will show this poster as a demonstration to the students. Now we will show you a short video of us teaching these skills.
Scenarios of what we can find here at school, and I'm going to show the feeling and you're going to
Okay, are you ready? Are you listening?
Yes, this is going to be so fun.
A big dog barks at you. Show her.
Great job. And boys and girls, you can just say the feeling out loud, okay?
Okay, here's another scenario. You're out at recess and you don't have anyone to play with.
Great
Excellent. A friend says that you are really good at soccer. Good job.
I'm sorry, my mouse is not working as well. Did I go skip one out? There you go.
Nope, we're good. So thank you for joining us for our second step lesson.
So what you'll find on the table today is it's just something for you to peruse through. It is an adaptation from the state's SEL guide. That's over 50 pages. I just pulled out the really important, really talks about what we're getting for doing SEL in the elementary and the secondary, and what it is a benefit as far as academics, behavior, the social emotional socialization of others. And then there's a really nice color chart in the back as well that really just talks about the different social emotional competencies and the explanation of them. Just a cute, something to look at and when you have some time.
Sorry, I'm Mike here. I'm sorry, I'm spit it out. I look at this and I understand how important it is, but there's a part of me, it kills me because, I'm sorry, this is the parents' job, just saying. So is there some part of this where the parents are brought in to sort of reinforce it and maybe enhance this so that at least the most is getting out of this? Because
That's
I know this is wonderful and all, but it's taking away from a lot of, I don't know where you're finding the time in the day to do this. I don't know, something's gotta give.
Well, they do, in each
So-
building, they use some classroom time, they use they do some assembly time, and I know at Frank G, they put it into PBIS time. So it's there. I think the part of the parents is really us sending home flyers, this is what we're working on, here are some skills to work on with your children at home. As far as bringing the parents in, we haven't gotten that far yet. You know, that might be something that we talk to eventually get some of our PTAs on board, and how can we do some of this in PTA meetings, but really this is the beginning steps of this.
Is this the first year of the second step program with the elementary
That
schools?
everybody, all three
Okay.
elementaries are doing it. It was piecemeal. So this year we bought the program for all three buildings. So they all sat together and laid out what that curriculum looks like from September to June.
So what kind of metrics do you have in place to show whether this program is working?
So we'll look at behavior referrals, we'll look at student attendance, we'll look at the bullying incidents that are in each building, and kind of, that's our baseline this year, and then we can look at it going to next year. So then you have that baseline data, and then we'll look at it. And you can look from September to January, usually incidents are very high. As we're doing more classroom stuff from January to June, our incidents starting to decrease.
So really the objective of this program is to reduce incidents?
No, it's really to teach them their social emotional, how to be a friend, how to handle conflict without being physical, right? It's all types of different things to deal with that social emotional piece of our bodies. It's the mindfulness, like we'll talk about in the middle school. What are the mindfulness? Because from this that's building onto really that the DBT series that we're going next.
So outside of the incident metrics, is there anything else you can do to measure whether the rest of that is successful?
There probably is. Well, again, this is our first year, so.
And I'll jump in because what New York State is considering, and Lisa went and heard this presentation, is trying to, from a top-down standpoint, that sounds horrible, evaluate schools based on social emotional readiness. And what they're asking
What
schools.
defines readiness?
Well, what
that's
they're
what
asking,
I'm asking.
what they're asking schools to do are to pilot a series of surveys to students, to staff, to parents, and use that as a metric over time. Do you feel safe in school? Do you feel supported? Do you feel you have someone you can speak to? Trying to create a quantifiable way to measure an experience. And people like me and my colleagues as superintendents are saying that's a bold step to take because you're asking for experiential data that could be used at the state ed level to determine whether your school is a safe school or a happy school or a not safe or a not happy school. So the state is tinkering with how they make this, how they not just mandate a curriculum, but how they mandate an assessment protocol to determine if it's working. That's part of the federal ESSA plan, the Every Student Succeeds Act. And New York State has asked for a series of waivers to wait until they implement it, but those waivers are going to expire in 2020. I'll have Lisa. Lisa went to a breakfast with one of our local region,
Judith Johnson.
Judith Johnson, who was talking about this and asking for input. But I'll let you talk if you want to weigh in on it.
Yeah, no, she was. It was really an interesting meeting, but she was saying that she, is looking for input from schools, from teachers, from people who are there on the ground running these things to see how we can structure it to make it work well for everybody, for everyone. And she's, willing to come in and videotape schools if they're willing to, if they have things that are working particularly well. A lot of her comments were just, geared toward, let's work together on this and form a collaboration, get your principals, get your teachers, get your everybody together, and let's figure out how we can make this really work well for people.
And sometimes that's where good initiatives go to die at state ed when they try to measure with such certainty to then what? Then determine if schools are achieving or not achieving in social emotional readiness. So there's the interest from the state to say we have to talk about these things, all of these skills, and I don't necessarily disagree with what Mary Pat's saying, but more and more of that responsibility is being laid at the doorstep of a school to teach problem solving, to teach how to be a friend. Whether our demographics are shifting or the demographics in the state, those are the issues and instances that that elementary schools are dealing with about how to solve a conflict on the playground, and how do you feel and how could you respond differently next time, and what those triggers are. And it's
I see sign, but
This is
part of
development.
being ready to go out in the world and interact with people and have a job is social emotional
I
wellness and
have to
health.
tell you.
Yeah, that's not,
You know, it's part of being a whole
I
person,
appreciate that, but there's still a part of me that it makes me insane that
too.
the school is doing the parents' job.
it's not even that,
And-
it's,
But
and
not
that-
every, not
I
every
know,
family
I
has
know,
the
I
skills to
appreciate that,
teach.
I appreciate that, but I just.
but this has been
it's-
through history. I mean, there's been families and families and families. And I've been in education for 30 years. And I see that we have developed absolutely wimpy kids. They don't know how to deal with anything because adults step in and have to solve everything, and you have to have somebody to play with, and no kids are allowed to. I'm sorry, I shouldn't go off, but this kills me too. There's no more sandbox rules. You know, little boys, oh, you can't be rough. What? They're 8. That's what little boys do. Next day, they're best friends. It's like we're interfering in all of this youth development that they usually develop on their own. Kindergartens, we no longer have a kitchen and a gas station. And they don't. That's the way kids used to be able to handle conflicts. Now we just, well, how do you feel about this? I deal with high school kids now who break down because they get a 85 instead of a 90. It's like they don't know how to deal with things because of stuff like this. I think we've turned the pendulum way too far. We don't let kids handle their own stuff. I mean, I understand that sometimes you have to step in. Now, every single time, bullying doesn't happen all the time. God forbid that a child is really bullied. But just because I make fun of your hair one day doesn't mean I'm bullying you. And that's how we kind of, I'm sorry, I'm going off on a soapbox. I just think we do too much of things in education that we never out of balance. It's either swing all the way this way or all the way this way. We have to reach a better balance. All this emotional stuff, we don't have kids who can handle anything anymore. I'm sorry.
But that's the.
We could disagree, please, we could
Well,
disagree.
no,
I disagree.
but that's the
that's the way I feel.
That's the research behind trying to help kids and teach kids how to deal with those situations, because they may not be getting it at home, or when you have your whole 3rd grade on the playground, you don't have enough eyes on all of those situations. And that may be a good segue to DBT. And I don't want to steal their thunder, but they're teaching kids how to regulate their behavior before they go off the deep end.
We've done stuff in the school, and my children were I don't want to say victims, but I'm going to use this. We had a group of boys who were playing football, and a little boy who wanted to play football who got hurt all the time. Those kids were told they can't play football anymore. How about you tell this kid to go play somewhere different? Like, what's wrong with that? We're so worried about hurting children's feelings instead of teaching them how to.
I think that's what this is doing.
No,
If you look at some of this curriculum, Lori, I read through some of this, and they have different tools that kids can use. They have the different zones that kids can.
Be a teacher for 30 years and see children, okay? This is crazy.
Lori, I get it.
My child is told who he has to play with. When he was at a certain school, he was told who he had to play with.
Okay, there's a balance, Lori. You know.
Exactly,
there's
we
a way
haven't
things-
reached it.
There's a way
We haven't
things-
reached it.
Yeah,
We're
but-
boom.
But they're trying something new
like worries
because
and-
what has been done over the past 30 years doesn't seem to be working, right? So they're trying something new.
30?
Right? You're saying 30 years.
No, I said I've been in education for 30 years.
All right.
And for the last
So-
decade, I see a bunch of kids who can't handle anything.
Right, so
They
they're
can't.
saying, so the faculty
No, it's
here
because of what we've
is
done to them.
I think it's recognizing that things aren't working now and they're trying something new. Am I getting something wrong here?
No, but I think there's lots of
What?
different things that we're teaching them, Lori, and I hear what you're saying. I do. I totally hear it and I validate it. But I think the thing that we also have to think about is we have kids that can't regulate themselves. They're physically aggressive. Whatever it is. We have to teach them those coping mechanisms so when they do go into the world, they're not those kids that nobody wants to play with or those kids that we can't get hired. That's part of our job as a school. That doesn't mean it's our only job.
I understand.
Right?
I
And
just
that-
don't want pendulums swinging like
No.
we do with, like, look at kindergarten. Look at your kindergarten classroom. Does it have a restaurant in it anymore? Does it have that where kids learn how to,
But
when they
things have
really learn how
changed
to
a lot in
operate?
10 years, Lori. How people deal with their own lives and emotions and the technology changes that have changed how people interact socially. We have to change too. So if we don't
understand that. We
try
don't have to bang
something
against
new,
one side though.
but if we don't try something new, we're not gonna figure out what works and what doesn't. I think what needs to happen
I
here
think
is if
that's
we
what
are
screws
gonna
up
do
kids, is
it,
that we keep trying
we have to
different
figure
things.
what we're trying to get to. What are our metrics? What is gonna be success for us to say, what's our problem that we're trying to solve? And how will we know if we solved it?
So what is our
I don't
problem
know,
that we're
I-
trying to solve?
I'm not the faculty. I just know that it sounds like there is a recognition that there is a problem.
What's our
And
problem that we're trying to
We
solve?
had a conversation at a board meeting about 2 years ago, it was January, almost 2 years ago, where the high school presented an academic report and said, I can't give you the numbers, but I can tell you what it feels like, that we
Oh,
have
I'll
more
tell
kids
you.
in crisis, we have more kids that
Because they don't
can't
have to
problem
do with
solve,
anything because of what
kids
we've done to
that go from
We
0
solve
to
all their
90.
problems.
And you could watch that board meeting, and I'll try to find it tomorrow morning.
And I probably spoke at it.
Well, but what we did was we made a mid-year adjustment, and I know Enrique remembers it, and we hired an additional social worker or psychologist, someone at the high school, to deal with the increase of this, je ne sais quoi, of a feeling of kids being in crisis. And so if we only deal with students who, or try to work with them and their families after they're in crisis, we're too late. And that led to conversations about DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, about how do we identify those kids and their parents, and they're going to talk about that, and move them through a prescripted method of educating the student and mom and dad or whoever's at home to help them help themselves with different skills that either weren't around, that weren't needed, or we didn't know that were there for your generation and my generation and the generations of kids you've taught. But we did that. We made a $100,000 decision mid-year because of what people in the high school were feeling about kids in crisis. And this board had a discussion and said, we can't keep putting Band-Aids on 10th graders. We have to have an organization-wide discussion. And that led to our work with Yale University and the Emotional Intelligence Institute that we sent a team to. Lisa participates on regional teams through BOCES on all things social emotional. And the idea is if we can start teaching kids to regulate themselves or teach them to articulate their emotions through puppets and snail and puppy and song and dance, we may not have the meltdown emergencies that you guys heard 2 years ago that has absolutely nothing to do with kids skipping class or going to the diner for lunch. And whether we're picking up more of a parenting role or not, I don't know, but we have the kids we have, and we have some of the concerns or the issues that we have. And what this group said was we can't keep throwing $100,000 of people at those problems after they manifest. So maybe that's the best segue to.
Wow,
to the
thank
middle
you,
school.
elementary
So,
team. Thank you so
guys.
much.
Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
can we
Oh,
hand
yeah,
back the
yeah, yeah.
material?
Take your stuff.
Yes.
I got you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So from the middle school, we actually are doing this middle school, high school. So 6 through 12 is working with the CBC out of White Plains, Alec Miller. Our consultant is Amy Walker, who comes and consults bi-weekly with each team. So from the middle school, we have groups up and running. They are running very strong. So I'm going to introduce the team, and I'm going to let them take over because I'm sure they have great activities for you. So we have Dr. Brodsky. Again, Christina Ray helps out at the middle school. Stephanie Westrick and Diane Burns-Dobson. So they work with our kids. They are probably the people I go to the most for DBT information because they are the experts. So I'll turn it over to them. Okay. Am I running this for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to start off with a little mindfulness activity. This is how we start off all of our group sessions, with a little mindfulness activity. It's an ABC game. So what we're going to do is we're going to start going around the room. I'll start with A, and the category is places. So when you get up to the letter, you have to think of a place with that letter, that begins with that letter. So we're going to hear
everybody to wherever stand up.
Yeah, so everybody's going to stand up.
We won't have you sing. No singing.
No singing, as long as we don't have to sing.
I got it right.
So we're going to ring this 3 times, and then we'll start.
So A, Alabama. B, Boise, Idaho.
California.
Delaware.
If you need help, you can ask for help.
Ethiopia.
F, Florida. That was mine. I know.
So-
G, gorgeous island somewhere.
It's like I can screw up everything. She said no, and then yes.
But they looked at me.
Is there one there, or you just naming a place?
Kentucky.
What was the direction?
Louisiana.
Put Montana.
I'm gonna stop right here. She just didn't want to do it. Yeah. So you can have a seat again. Do you want to just go to that? What were your thoughts as we did best practice? Did anybody have any thoughts or feelings?
Am I gonna get stuck and not know a place that begins with that letter?
Right. Yeah.
I do, but I'm just.
I counted my letter as soon as I knew who
Yes.
was.
Planned ahead.
Exactly. Yeah.
I came up with it before it got to me.
Were you thinking other things while we were playing the game?
Yeah.
So you had intrusive thoughts.
No, I was thinking, had I been there?
Might have been easier? Yeah. Okay. So one of the reasons that we do a mindfulness activity, it's one of the foundations actually of DBT, and it's to help our audience really get ready for the group, let go of anything that might be interfering with their thinking in that moment so that they can fully embrace the lesson that we're going to be doing. So on that note, we'll talk about what DBT actually is. So one of the, like I said, the main foundations of DBT is being present, really being present in the moment so that they can fully accept whatever lesson they're going to learn. And DBT is a skill-based type of group that we run, and we're going to talk a little bit about the kids that we choose and how we select students. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what each letter stands for. So people say, as soon as I say dialectical behavior therapy, they go, oh my God, that's such a mouthful, right? And they're like, what is that? And I really say that it's a very, it's a long couple of words that really describe something very specific and very simple. Dialectical means two opposing things that may be seemingly opposite but can be true. So Dr. Brodsky and I actually run a 7th grade group together for the last couple of years, and we always use the example of snow, right? And it's perfect, right, in time for what's going to be happening soon. So snow is very beautiful. Everybody agree with that? Beautiful. But snow also can be a really big pain in the tush. Everybody agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it's two opposite things, yes? But both can be true. So what we talk about is, one of the main philosophies of DBT in theory is that we all in this moment are trying the very best we can. You know, you talked about going off on a soapbox, but you really believe what you're saying and you really care about students and you really want them to do well. You are doing the very, very best with what you can in the moment that you're in right now. And we also accept on an opposition side that we can always do better. So that's why we're here, right? We're here to talk about students and we're here to figure out how we can actually do better. But we're also trying the best we can. So that's a dialectic right there. So it's two opposing things that can be true at the same time. For any given situation, we look to acknowledge all that is true in a non-judgmental stance. So that's one of the big things that I actually, when I speak to teams of teachers, we want teachers, as we trickle down, and Dr. Brodsky is going to talk a little bit about our steps going forward, as we want to talk to students in a non-judgmental way. So we're not judging the fact that they may need to do better. We acknowledge that they're doing the best they can right now with what they have and the skills that they have. Okay, behavior analysis. A behavior is anything that can be reinforced or rewarded, and a reinforcer is anything that increases the likelihood that a behavior will occur again. So again, going forward, I don't want to skip ahead, but we talk about the behaviors and how we refer students and how we get referrals, and a lot of it is based on behavior and some of our most at-risk students and the behaviors they exhibit in school. And we want to make sure that we're not rewarding or reinforcing behaviors and acknowledging them. And again, with that non-judgmental stance, also saying that they're doing the best they can and we can still do better. Okay, the 4 components of a DBT comprehensive model is weekly DBT consultation team. So we get together as a team every single week to talk about, we have an actual really it's a structured program and how we do it. We do a mindfulness activity ourselves. We read a team agreement. I would love to share with this group our team agreements. It'd be nice to give them. That might be something we can get to you guys. And then we talk about our burnout ratings, because as clinicians, we definitely experience difficulty in doing what we do every day. And this gives us an opportunity to share with each other, get feedback, help problem solving, and also help validate each other. So that's our consultation team. We have weekly skills groups, so we've broken up into pairs, and each of us do 1 or 2 groups per week with a specific grade. And then along with that, which isn't on there, we do meet with the teams of teachers to kind of give them updates about what we're doing with the students and maybe highlight any students that have done quite well or maybe that are struggling. So that's been added this year. We also pick some kids who may need some extra reinforcement in doing individual sessions. We do diary cards and other things in those individual sessions and go over the group that we had previous week, make sure that questions are answered, and then they get a chance to go out, practice their skills, and then come back to us and let us know how it's going and if they've been successful or not. And then coaching is needed. So I have students that we have in DBT that may come through by my office and say, I tried this skill and it really worked, or I tried this skill and it really did not work. And they may need a little bit of reinforcement and validating. They spend a couple minutes with me and off they go back to class. So that's what the model looks like right now.
Okay. So our student selection. So there's a number of different ways that we get the referrals. So our teachers can refer the students to us. They in turn usually let our school counselors know and or the administration. Once we get that list, we go over it together and we reach out to our parents and we tell them a little bit about the program, and then we obtain verbal consent to interview the student. And once the student is interviewed, we have a formal sheet that we each follow. So everybody is doing the exact same practice when they're interviewing the student and getting the same information. And then we score them, and when we see that they're scoring high in the various the areas that the skills works on, which I will go into, we then look to them to see if they are going to be willing to commit to the program. Like with anything, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. If we don't have buy-in from our students and our families, the program is not going to work. It doesn't matter how wonderful it is. We need to have that commitment. So once they do commit and we go from there, then we send out the written consent for the parent and the student to sign, give them a little information about this contract, and then we put them in the group, and then we start our group. Next slide, if you would, please. Thank you. So our problem areas. So DBT focuses.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You said selection, so I thought this would be the appropriate time to ask. What percentage of the students are getting this experience?
I couldn't give you the exact percentage.
I would say.
Are we talking 1 or 90?
I would say about 5%,
Yeah,
5 to 10%.
Thank you.
Right, and we're looking, and
Roughly,
I'll explain, we're looking for extremes. Everybody could benefit. Every single student in our building, faculty, you could benefit from it. These are skills that they'll take with them for life. It's not just while they're in Blue Mountain Middle School or while they're in Hendrick Hudson High School. They're taking these skills that they're learning and they practice, they will take them with them for life. These are life skills. So these are the 5 problem areas that DBT focuses on. So when you have the reduced awareness and focus, right, that's difficulty being aware of your emotions, your thoughts, and your feelings. Like you just don't have that awareness, right? They might have difficulty paying attention in class, and as a result, they may be stuck on thinking about the past and some sadness or worrying about the future, not knowing what their goals are. I know you're probably thinking, I don't even know what my goals are, but not knowing what they are. Where do we go from here? Where do they want to be? What do they want to do in life? What their values are. So when they know what their values are, and somebody comes up to them and says, hey, let's do this, and this is not a very good thing, drugs, alcohol, or whatever, they know what their own values are, and they can be more self-assured and make better decisions. Impulsivity. Okay, so pretty much, acting without really thinking things through, right? Or they're doing things to avoid emotional experiences, and that can run the gamut. So it can be from yelling out in class, angry verbal or physical outbursts, impulsive eating, impulsive shopping, driving recklessly, or engaging in self-harming behaviors. Emotional dysregulation. So those are those fast and intensive mood swings. So you could be really sad 1 minute, then for 15 minutes you might be a little anxious, and then maybe you're feeling a little guilty, and then maybe you're perseverating on something else. So it's going through it's like a roller coaster of feelings. It doesn't necessarily have to be like kids are terming like, you're like a manic-y thing or something. It can go, like in a gradual curve. Or it could be students that are in a steady emotional state of being angry or anxious or sad. So that would count in there as well. The next is interpersonal problems. So when you think of interpersonal problems, difficulty maintaining and keeping relationships, right? These are students that, one day they like somebody, and then the next minute or next day they hate them, or they don't want to speak to them anymore. Having difficulty saying no, being able to say to somebody or decline an invitation to some place without hurting somebody's feelings. That would count in there as well. The adolescent and family challenges, that's that extreme thinking, that black and white thinking, the no shades of gray kind of thinking. Extreme feelings and actions, making decisions in an emotional state. We all know that when we are in a heightened emotional state, we don't make good decisions, right? Because we're so anxious about something, and then it's just like, you're grounded for 6 months. Don't ask me for anything again. And then when you think about it, it's like, okay, you really have to kind of take a step back and come to some kind of compromise, and that, maybe a week without your phone, or a week without whatever, being grounded. So can we go to the next one? Okay, so what are the skills? We just talked about the skill areas. What are the skills to address those problem areas? So we're going to go back there again. So the reduced awareness and focus, we're going to do core mindfulness skills, right? Teaching students to be able to be present in the moment, right? Understanding their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, and doing that without making a judgment, right? We just went around the room and we just did that mindfulness practice, and Stephanie asked you, okay, so what were you experiencing, right? Some people are, I was going to count around. I wanted to make sure you don't want to look foolish. You don't want to stand out. You don't want a negative attention to be called to you. So these are skills that we're teaching our kids to be present, to be mindful and focused, right? So, and without making that judgment, because we notice sometimes we do make those judgments, and then those judgments affect the thoughts, right? Those are our thoughts that affect our emotions, and then in turn the actions that we then follow on with. The impulsivity, we do distress tolerance skills. That's sitting and helping students to tolerate those really uncomfortable feelings, right? We all know, because we've been there, like it's not good to feel those negative emotions. It doesn't feel good at all. We want to push it away. We want to avoid it. So we're going to teach them skills so they can sit with that uncomfortable feeling, because there's nothing they can do about it in the moment. So we're going to give them those skills that they can do to deal with something. Those are those crisis survival skills. I got to get through this. There's nothing I can do about it. So I'm going to self-soothe. I'm going to do a mindfulness practice. I'm going to do some distracting, doing things to improve the moment. When they can't do that, then we're going to teach them those tip skills, where it's going to change the physiological response in the body, like putting ice cold water in their face, which is immediately going to drop that and bring it down. And then radical acceptance. Radical acceptance is, you know what, there's nothing I can do about it. It is what it is. I cannot change it, and that's like fully accepting it. I can't change it. Stop fighting it. Stop avoiding it. This is how it's going to be. So it's just that radical acceptance. Emotion dysregulation. Again, it's teaching emotional regulation skills, taking charge of your emotions, right? Understanding of the emotions that you're experiencing. We want to reduce that vulnerability. We want to decrease the frequency of those unwanted emotions and the suffering that goes along with it, right? The interpersonal problems, we're going to teach interpersonal effective skills, right? We want them to focus on building and maintaining positive relationships, maintaining positive relationships. getting what they want, right, while still keeping the relationship. So when we had before, we were learning like that black or white, I hate you, to the next day I love you, or vice versa, right? And keeping your self-respect. And lastly, those adolescent and family challenges, I'm going to teach them those walk in the middle path skills, right? There's always more than one way to look at a situation, right? This is where we really teach them how to act and think dialectically, right? So each person has their own unique qualities. Different people have different points of view. Saw that this evening, right? That's okay, right? That's how life is. And change is the only constant. With DBT, we're trying to balance that change and acceptance. Change and acceptance, right? And two things that seemingly seem opposite can be true at the same time. And we need to honor the truth and the belief that those two truths are what people believe. So, thank you.
Okay, so we're in our third year running DBT groups. And so we have ramped up a little bit each year. We've increased the amount of students we've worked with from year to year, and we've added new components as we've gone along. Last year we served a total of 24 students. We start off with a few more than that. They don't always make it through. There are some students who will initially commit and then back out later, or maybe it's just not a good fit for them. And so in the end, we serviced a total of 24 students. And I'll tell you, over the years, this is my, I think, 19th year at Blue Mountain. And so over the years, the conversations that I've had with John Owens have always been, how can we serve our most at-risk students? What can we do that will be effective? Sitting in a room and doing individual counseling with each one of them has typically not been the most effective way to do it. So we've been looking at different creative ways to address those students. And so this program, in my experience, has been the most effective by far way of addressing our most at-risk students, which is typically 5 to 10% of our students. The kids who get suspended a lot, or the kids who are really fragile and fly under the radar a bit, and you just don't notice that they're suffering. So groups are formed by grade. We don't have mixed grade groups. Each group is led by two of us. So there's we have 2 social workers, 2 psychologists, and each group is I do 6th and 7th. Christina does 6th and 8th. Stephanie does 7th, and Diane does 8th. And we by case, we mix up the individual sessions. So we're in the process of doing that, all of that now. So we can go to the next slide.
Can I just add one thing in there too,
Sure.
Rick? We were also discussing this year. We had closed groups last year. So once the groups began, we did not allow any other students to enter into it. But this year we're looking, and with our consultant, Amy Walker, she was very encouraging and suggested, as they do at CBC in Westchester, that we have it be an open thing, so the students will be able to come in and out, and this way we could serve that many more students.
We deal in modules, so once one module is over, if there's any kids that need to be referred in and are a good fit, then we can allow them in to the beginning of the next module, so they're not missing anything.
Right. So in our process with the consultant, we're trying to fine-tune what we're doing as we go along, and so things like pacing, the way that we pace the curriculum of DBT is something we've been looking at, because we believe that we could be a little bit more efficient in moving through the content rather than feeling like we have to cover so much. And what it's enabling us to do is get to more of the modules and be able to have this conversation about students entering in the middle of the year like they do at the clinic in White Plains. So we're kind of mimicking what they do, and it will allow us to just serve more students. Addressing one of your questions from earlier tonight, we took pre and post data last year. We used an in-house assessment tool that CBC uses, and we're compiling that data now. So we're not ready to share it, but we are working on it. We are using a new assessment tool going into this year. You've begun your pre-data.
The DERS.
We're going to begin our pre-data tomorrow with 7th graders. So we really like the idea of assessing what we do and seeing how effective we can be. and using it as a tool to show the community how well we're doing, but also to help us to grow.
It's also nice to share with the students, you know, when they're starting, and they're, you know, initially committing to the group, and their frequent question is, well, how is this going to be any different than any other group, you know, and how is this going to change anything? And by giving them examples, I mean, I think one of the nice things about DBT in general, and we did sort of touch on this, is that we can all use it. We can all use it. And really what we have done, because we can't necessarily service everybody at this point in time, at least not yet, is we take the kids that are the most at risk so that we can target them and make some difference, give them some feedback on how we use it in our daily lives, and the success stories of the other students and how it's beneficial for them. And we just get more buy-in that way.
Absolutely. So I'll share an example of a success story. Last year, we had a 6th grade student who was having a tremendous amount of anxiety and was having difficulty staying in the classroom. So there were certain classrooms that this student would leave, would ask to go to the bathroom and not go to the bathroom, wind up at my office or school counselor's office, and show up at the door in tears, near panicked, not wanting to go back to class, feeling like it was too much to handle, it was too overwhelming, and proceeded to shut down in my room. And so in sticking to DBT skills and what that student was learning, we selected skills in individual session so that the student could pick those skills and commit to using those skills, and then we began practice with feedback and reinforcement. And so at first it was not easy, it took a lot of encouragement. There were successes on some days and not success on other days. But within, I'd say, 5 to 6 weeks, the behavior was completely gone, completely extinguished. Doesn't exist today. Totally different student today. So this is a student who bought in the beginning, who participates in the skills group and is a very willing participant, takes that diary card each week with the skills and the feedback sections, and brings it home and walks around school with it and takes notes on things that went well and didn't go well, and we talk about it. And it's just been one of the really, you know, ideal situations and success stories.
And so because of that, she's able to be in class more, be an active participant in her curriculum, and do better than she had been doing before. So I mean, it's a trickle down, right? So
her teachers this year were surprised to hear that they earned difficulties last year. So it's been gratifying for us to see. One of several examples. Okay, so this slide talks a bit about our future thinking. The first item talks about meeting with the teachers, and so this is already in place. We're already doing this. Each of us is assigned to a grade. We go in and meet with the teaching teams to teach them about the skills, teach them the language so that they can reinforce the work in the classroom, the work that the students are trying to do in their classrooms. And we can talk about students too. We could talk about not just learning, not the teachers learning, necessarily learning skills, but also learning about the students and getting feedback on helping them. Our intention this year is to add a parent component. So we would like to try a monthly meeting. We're going to try and alternate before the school day and after the school day, maybe in the evening. And so we have some materials that we would like to employ. It's a sort of parent training type of format that was developed at Yale. And so we'll give you feedback on that once we get started with that. I'm sorry.
Would that parent meeting be only for people that are in your program currently, or would it be open to other parents?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Because that seems like something I think I would benefit from,
right?
and I think a lot of other parents
That
would
might
as
be
well.
That might be an additional meeting to talk about the program in general and what we can all do to benefit from it, and also help our children that maybe are not in our groups at this point in time. That might be another step.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to consider.
Yeah. Thank you for that question.
Yeah.
make us think. So this next part is a bigger goal, and I think we're well on our way to move in this direction. There is a DBT program called Steps A, which is meant to be done in the classroom. And so we are on the verge of creating a pilot for this year where we will use the Steps A curriculum in a health a classroom for a block of time. And we're modeling or replicating what's done in some other buildings around the county that we researched. And so what we hope will happen is that every student in the building in their time at Blue Mountain will get exposed to DBT language, skills, and so if they are, they may make use of that, it might benefit them in some way, and if they have trouble down the line and they wind up seeing one of us in our groups, they're already familiar with the language, it's an easy transition into doing the work with us.
I think one of the other positive things I just wanted to add is that along with teams of teachers learning the language and also being able to learn skills on their own and getting feedback on students and being able to give maybe feedback on students that they might think that are good for our program, is even our school nurse sometimes consults with me, and she'll ask me about frequent flyers in the nurse's office, and we'll work on some skills, her and I together, to help her manage some of the things that she's got going on along with those, and maybe how to help some of her kids that she sees too. So I think it's really caught on like wildfire, where not just our teachers are asking questions and learning vocabulary and using skills, but the rest of our staff, the rest of our staff.
We have a lot of traction going with this.
So we're really excited.
I'd like to say thank you to all of you, board and administration, for supporting this. I know it's been a big undertaking, and I think it's been very, very successful so far. And I'd also like to say thank you for inviting an unprecedented amount of psychologists here tonight on National School Psychologist Day.
Is it really?
It really
Did not
is.
even know that. I did not even know that. That's funny.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments?
Thank you for all the work you're doing. I think it's I think it's great that we're infusing some social emotional skills into the curriculum and getting help, especially for our most at-risk kids.
Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Thank you all.
Drive safe.
Drive safely.
Thank you.
I could just add too, that a lot of the schools have been doing this, and I know at the secondary level, the administration has brought in a lot of the skills, mindfulness, or the cabinet meeting, being aware of the language and the lingo when they're working with students as well. So, the gentleman who runs DBT has spoken to administration, I think it was last year, and gave everybody some sort of basic background around it as well. So. And some classrooms have been, starting to get that exposure to Steps A.
Okay. On to policies. We have a number of policies tonight. All of these are revisions, and mostly revisions due to changes in language programs. So, policy 4321. Where do you want to do the reading? Here, or do you want me to start reading?
Sure.
I'll go get she's saying goodbye.
Start with that?
You can start reading and we can waive and then.
Okay, because do we want to discuss it too, right? All right, the Board of Education shall make available a free, appropriate public education to all students with disabilities. Thank you. Okay.
All right, so policy 4321. Why are we changing the language?
The most important piece of this policy, there's some verbiage. There's also some updated, we don't have vested anymore. We call it OPWDD. We call it Access VR. They changed some language, but the most important in this one is the transition services and the diploma credentials, which you'll find in the last 2 pages.
It's still.
Yes.
Still on.
I got that
check?
answer.
Okay.
Yep. So basically, the most important pages at the last 2 pages where it talks about the transition services and the diploma credentials, because we now have the 4+1, which has many different options, not just for special ed, but for other students as well, to get diplomas. So our kids could actually go and do some superintendent's determination where we could petition Joe and say, listen, they couldn't pass the regents, but here's the data over the last 4 years that they actually met the standards. They just couldn't pass that test. So they can actually go to the superintendent and he can make a determination. So that's the biggest piece of this updated policy. So we're out, it's been a while since they've been reviewed, so reviewing it and getting the right stuff in place is really where we are for this one.
And just to be very clear, just because our policy is not as updated as state or federal language doesn't, we behave and respond to federal and state regs and policies. So a lot of these updates that you'll hear over the next 5 months are catching up with state or federal law. Not to say that we haven't been following it, but just to get our policies at the same playing field as the state does.
Okay.
Since this is a revision,
It can be one and done.
does anybody have any questions about this? Do we want time to read it over and we can vote on it next time, or are we happy with the revisions as is? I know you guys got these.
And just one more, when we get into policies like this, our corporate law firm Keenan Bean did all the revisions, so they're the research arm of this, and they're the ones who actually authored the documents.
It doesn't look like there's anything really substantial,
No.
and
Right,
so
no, it's mostly
I don't see it
verbiage.
as,
Individual?
You can take them as a package after you go.
Okay. Should we do that? All right. Policy number 4321.3.
Yep, so this policy, the biggest policy, this is an IE, Independent Educational Evaluations. So if a parent wants an outside evaluation, they can petition, we can grant it, we can go to a hearing if we don't agree. There's many different things you can do. But this policy hasn't been reviewed since 2004, so we really needed to review it and really update it. And another thing that we'll have to do is put our fee schedule up and put our providers. So we don't do the evaluations ourselves. We usually have outside people do them. That's why they're called independent evaluations. So we could go through BOCES. We may have some certain people on contracts and agencies that we would send them to as well. So that's really, it's moving some language around, adding a sentence here or there, but that's really, the last 14 years we had to make some changes.
I had caught a little typo on this one. I don't know. Is that the time to talk about
I've
it?
already,
Yes.
I've already cleaned up the typo, so
Okay.
I don't think you got the clean copies.
Okay, you did.
I think
Okay.
you got the copies. We did that in our policy
You
meeting.
got the committee
Okay.
ones.
Yeah.
You have what the committee saw.
Okay.
And then
There
you
was-
made some
there were
typos
differences
after.
there were
Okay.
some.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
All right, policy 4321.4.
I don't think you gave me a motion, excuse me, I don't think you gave me a motion for that.
we're doing them all at once.
You're gonna do them all at
We're
once,
gonna do them all
okay.
at once, but we should do a little read
You can do the
beforehand.
read.
Okay.
4321.4.
Oh, Lord. It shall be the policy of the school district to appoint and compensate.
Yes.
Did we do it? You did?
Yes.
Do it.
Okay.
Wait.
Wait, reading.
This again is our impartial hearing officer. If we do have to go and have legal action, this is the role of the impartial hearing officer. The only thing that really changed on here was some language. And then letter C about the appointment, accepting of the hearing officer. So really, it's more about what the law states. So we pulled those from the regs, their updated information. So that's about the only thing that's new. The only thing that Lori commented in the policy meeting is that we do, as the district, do have to pay for the IHO. And I know that was something, if you look at E on the second page, it really states about the fees and everything. So we do pay, every time we have a hearing, we pay for the IHO as the district.
All right, policy 4321.5.
The Board, ready?
Yep.
The Board of Education recognizes the importance of ensuring and maintaining the
Move to
confidentiality.
waive further reading of policy 4321.5.
Okay.
I was
Thank
gonna
you.
let her go.
Good luck, Nika.
Again, this is an older policy. It's about 10 years old. It does have vested on here still, and when I talked to the legal team about that, The rationale behind that was because that's what the state is still, that's the reference at the state. They have not updated it. Vested is still there. This is really coming with the century that we're in of technology, of how we share IEPs and how we share confidential information. So we can do it electronically if we follow this route, if we do this. So that's really where this policy really came up, and how you share it with people outside of the family, what they offer you to, who they allow you to share it with.
Okay.
And how.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions here? Policy 4321.6.
I have questions about this one too, right?
Yes.
Yes. All right, the Board of Education recognizes its I think you're gonna let me go a little bit.
Do you want to? Oh, I thought you didn't want to. Oh, feel free.
So again, the vested is here. Again, that goes back to the state website being what the state website is, and that doesn't change, so we have to keep that language there. This is purchasing for our, when we purchase, basically, we have to make sure we purchase for students with disabilities. So we have to make sure there's a version for students with disabilities. If there is a version, we need that. We've been pretty cautious about that. I don't think we buy many textbooks. We can get books on tape. We can do audibles. There's so many different ways we can do it. This is not something that's earth-shattering, but it's just that update and making sure we have the basics in there.
And last of the list of policies, 4321.7.
The Board of Education shall ensure that no student is discriminated against.
Move to waive further reading of policy 4321.7.
Thank you.
So this is just some verbiage change for students with a 504 plan. You know, we talk about adaptations versus accommodations. It's just some language change. Yeah.
Does it impact them in any way, like what we're already doing?
No, we're already doing it. They just want to make sure the language is updated.
Okay.
This was 2013.
Yeah. Some of
This
these
one's
were
fairly close, you know,
yeah.
less old than the others.
It's more recent.
All right, so as a group, with these revisions of the policies, would anybody like to make a motion to accept the policies as revised?
Me, can I do that even though I'm not? Okay.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Lisa, for all of your hard work doing
Yes.
this, and to our legal team. It's nice to, it's good to take some of these older policies and review them and get them updated. Our next section is audience comments, hearing of the public on agenda items. Does anybody have any comments on the agenda items? If so, if you haven't signed the book, please do so. Please remember to state your name.
Hi, my name is Joyce Snyder. Well, I just have a question because the process was not easy. Is there a way that we can form some kind of program where we know the actual proper steps to take? And I say this even more since Dr. Brodsky had left. My child has been put in DBT and we agreed and she needed that and
Again,
it was very
please refrain from
for the
giving
general
any details
public.
about yeah.
To get an IEP was difficult, and I'm a little confused on why when so many of the traits that were shown on the screen were part of her issues. As a parent, I am a parent who calls regularly, keeps track of my child.
Again, please
Sorry,
don't talk about specific.
The guidance counselor has been a godsend. But I think that people need to know that as parents, we're not completely informed on steps that we should be taking, and in some cases we're misleading. It caused more of a struggle than was necessary, and luckily the students' parents have great insurance and were able to go outside, but we shouldn't have had to do that, being the issues that were recorded by teachers going back through elementary school. So I think that we just have to
make a better way to go about this, because as parents it's upsetting, it's devastating. It's hard to say that things are wrong with children, and it's usually the opposite where you say it's not my kid. So when you are repeatedly saying, you know, it is this issue or this one is this issue, it's got to be heard, because it was very devastating, and it devastates families if it's not picked up. So if parents are continuously saying, you know, please look at this, or you know, we noticed this, and it's got to be looked at, because it just causes so much. And especially at the middle school age, kids' confidence, if it goes down, it leads to other things, and you know, none of us want that for any of our children. So if there's just any way we can try to find a better way to get that program started, or the department be more open, because you know, there's people that have contacted, and you know, we shouldn't be asked, do you think your child needs a 504? Do you think your child needs an IEP? Because I don't know. That's not my field. And I entrust, and so do all the other parents, for our child to be in a safe environment where they'll be honest and say, you know what, they do need this, or no, they don't. So I just think that we have to find a better way, especially if they're in DBT already, and you are asking for an IEP, that it shouldn't be such a difficult process to get there.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yes.
If you go to the left, the address there.
Hi, my name is Michelle Fasolino. I have 2 children in the district. My question is regarding the DBT. They said that they are going to look at bullying baseline in each building. The baseline in each building to see how, to gauge how it's doing. But we do not report anything, because we've reported 0 on all of our DASA reports, all of our assaults, all of our, for the last 5 to 7 years. So how are we going to have accurate results on this DBT if we're not actually reporting any of the bullying or assaults? So it's not an accurate read.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Board comments, new business. I have some things that nobody else does. Since our last meeting, a couple of us have had the opportunity to go to the NYSBA conference in New York City that was held last month. And I'd say the highlight for me was hearing Dr. Janet Robinson speak. She's a former superintendent for Newtown Schools, and talked about the difficulty of communicating after the horrific incident there. Got some take-home points to think about, and it was a very emotional day. Lisa and Joe joined me in that, and the 3 of us were also at the Regional Superintendent Board of Ed Trustee Dinner recently. Heard another very excellent speaker. In addition to that, last week I had the opportunity to see the performers from our school that were selected for the All-State Regional Concert. Both orchestra students and chorus students were participating in that, and it was really a wonderful event. And our high school students, musicians are great, but seeing them at that next level was even more amazing. Anybody else have anything else? Okay. So my last thing is, Veterans Day just passed. I'd like to just say thank you to all of our servicemen and women. Greatly appreciate your service, and we won't forget. And Thanksgiving's coming up next week, so happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Enjoy your time with your families and friends. And next meeting is on the 28th. Thank you. Can I have a motion to close the meeting?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.